This tag is about the first half of the year. So if you do it before July, then the first half of the year has not passed. So it can't be the mid-year freakout tag. That's just... Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Fran, this is frannook in the pages, and today I'm finally going to do the mid-year freakout book tag. This is that time of the year we all know and absolutely adore this tag, and I'm glad that it's finally the right time to do it, because you have to wait until the first 6 months of the year have passed. It's time to do it, so let's do it. Best book you've read so far in 2022. I'm happy to say that I have been reading books that I've really enjoyed this year, books that are going to stick with me for a long time for one reason or another. But the best book that I've read so far this year, if we want to be honest, if we don't want to lie to ourselves, is undoubtedly The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shen. And this mammoth of a book is absolutely freaking tastic. It is a masterpiece. It is an epic fantasy, queer fantasy. This is where I need the fantasy genre to be at, so just read and learn. Then I want to add a prompt, because I'm me and I do things the way that I want to do things, and that is the best book you've listened to so far this year. As a lover of audiobooks, as you should know by now, if you've watched my videos, if you've been here on this channel for any length of time, you should know that I love listening to audiobooks. Now that I've discovered them and now that I've fallen in love with them, I could not live without them. So I had to mention the best audiobook that I've listened to so far this year. And let me tell you, choosing the best book that I've read so far this year was so easy. Choosing the best audiobook that I've listened to so far this year was not. I've listened to so many incredible audiobooks that it was hard. It was hard to pick and choose, but I think I need to go with The Secret Lives of Church Ladies by Tisha Filio. This is a short story collection and it was narrated by Janina Edwards, and she was absolutely freaking tastic. She was so good. She gave a different interpretation, a different voice to the different short stories in the collection, and she just nailed it. She just nailed it. It was so good. Oh my gosh, I recommend you listen to the audiobook if you want to read this book, and you should, because it's absolutely incredible. This is like the second best book I've read so far this year, so it's still a great book on its own, but the audiobook experience was top-notch. And the second best audiobook that I've listened to so far this year is The Queer Principles of Kit Webb by Cat Sebastian, and this was narrated by Joel Leslie. And Joel Leslie kind of reminded me of, I can't remember the actor's name right now, but the blonde aristocrat turned pirate in Our Flag Means Death. That's the vibe that he was giving me, and I had that mental image the whole time that I was listening to the audiobook, and it was just beautiful. 100% recommend. The actual second prompt of the book tag is best sequel you read so far this year in 2022. I haven't read any sequel so far this year apart from Four Aunties and a Wedding by Jessica Sutanto, and it wasn't as good as the first book. If you remember, the first book, Dial A for Aunties, was on my top favorite books of last year, so I really loved it. This one, this time around, I enjoyed the audiobook, but the book itself was a little bit less enjoyable. It was less light and funny and a bit more stressful and at times hard to believe. So I don't know. I still gave it 4 stars. I still enjoyed it a lot, but it wasn't as good as the first one. I think there's a third book coming out in this series, so I do have high hopes for that. A new release you haven't read yet, but want to. You guys, I've been so bad at reading new releases this year. I have read a few which I'm very happy about, and I guess it's better than nothing, but at the same time I had so many new releases that I was highly anticipating and that were coming out this year, and I didn't even read half of them. If you go and watch my most anticipated new releases for 2022, there's a high chance that I haven't read any of the titles that you'll see in that video. So you can just go and watch that. All those books I haven't read and I really wanted to. But I'm just gonna mention a few because I'm a masochist and because I want to guilt trip myself into reading them as soon as I can. There's Idol by Lucy O'Neill, Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, which after Stay Another Day, I need to read it, you guys. I just have to. The Many Half-Lived Lives of Sam Sylvester by Maya McGregor, and this one was also on my June TBR, so the fact that I still haven't read it and June has passed, it makes me feel very bad. I'm picturing Cersei from Game of Thrones doing the shame walk. That's how I'm feeling right now. Nothing Burns as Bright as You by Ashley Woodfolk. This is also a novel in verse, so it should be very quick to read. Still haven't read it. Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldry. I really wanted to read this one. It's supposed to be a sweet, cozy fantasy, and I want to read that one. Girls Can Kiss Now by Jill Gutowitz. I really wanted to read this one. I haven't even read This Woven Kingdom by Tahara Mafi. Just throw me off the window, please. Most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. I feel like I should make another video about the releases that are coming out in the second half of the year that I'm highly anticipating, because of course the books that I talked about in my video from last year about my most anticipated new releases for 2022, I was mainly focusing on the first half of the year. So there's a whole bunch of books that is coming out in the second half of the year that I haven't mentioned, that I didn't even know was coming out in the second half of the year. So I feel like I want to make a video about that. Let me know in the comments if you would be interested in watching that, but I'll just mention a few that really caught my eye and I want to try and do my best to actually read them when they come out. A Prayer for the Crown Shy by Becky Chambers. This is the second book in the Monk and Robot series. I read the first one last year. I want to reread it this month and then move on to the second book that is coming out very soon. I think July 13th. Something like that. The Killing Code by Ellie Marney. Ellie Marney is an Australian author that wrote a Sherlock Holmes retelling that I really adored back when I read it. I think, oh my gosh, 5-6 years ago. It's been a while, but I remember absolutely adoring it. And this is supposed to be a queer historical fiction YA and a mystery. It's set during World War II, I think, and that's not usually a historical period that I like reading about. I really don't like books set during World War II. It's just not my thing. But it's Ellie Marney and it's gay. I feel like I need to give it a chance. Self-Portrait with Nothing by Amy Potwatka. This is supposed to be a literary fiction with magical realism of some sorts. Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. This is Matthew Perry's memoir, and for those of you who live under a rock or whatever, he's the actor who played Chandler on Friends. He was my favorite character on Friends. He is my favorite character on Friends. I have loved him so much and I just want to read his memoir so bad. I hope that he's going to be the one reading it out loud, because I need to narrate it from him. That's just what I need in my life. And also, and this was such a nice surprise, 9 Liars by Maureen Johnson is coming out right at the end of the year, and this is the 5th novel in the Truly Devious series, companion novel series, whatever. I didn't think there was going to be a 5th book. Originally, it was supposed to be a trilogy plus a companion novel, which I read and loved. But then this news came out and I was happy because I just love that series. It's so entertaining and engaging and addicting, and I just love those books so much. Moving on, this video is going to be so effing long. Biggest disappointment. Now, I don't want to go in depth. I don't want to think about this book anymore. It was just the worst thing ever. It was such a terrible experience. I hated it. It really did. It really disappointed me. It was Portrait of a Thief by... Who was it by? I don't even remember. I don't want to look. I don't care. This was supposed to be Ocean's 11 meets something else. It was supposed to be about museum robberies, about the Chinese diaspora. It was supposed to be queer, and oh gosh, it was so bad. It was so bad. There was nothing about the robberies in detail, and if you put in the synopsis that it's Ocean's 11 meets something else, I'm expecting detailed robberies. I'm expecting robberies at their best, but there was none of that here. Like, there were literally scenes where the characters would go into a museum without worrying about the cameras, without worrying about anything, and they would just break the glass to steal the art pieces. Just, are you kidding me? That's not... Anyway, and then there was a character that was supposed to be queer, and I guess she was queer, but in the whole effing book, not once was it said that these characters were lesbian or bisexual or what. It's like it was a swear word. No, 2022, if the book is set at present times, and it was because there was a mention of COVID, you know, you cannot have a queer character and talk about their being queer throughout the book and not using any words, not even queer. You don't have to label yourself as a lesbian or bisexual, but just use a fucking word, okay? Don't just say that, oh, I know that you like girls like that, or that kind of thing. Just no, that's insulting. The biggest surprise, I have two for this one because I just could not decide which surprise was more surprising, if that makes sense, than the other one. So I'm gonna go with, first of all, The Queer Principles of Kit Webb, again by Cat Sebastian, and that is because I absolutely adored this book. I loved it. I devoured it. I was listening to the audiobook and it took me 2 days to listen to the whole thing, which is something that has never happened to me. Usually it takes me more or less a week to finish an audiobook because I listen to like around 1 hour every day, a bit more, a bit less, but more or less 1 hour. And this one, I did not want to stop listening. We were moving houses. I kept listening and listening to it while I was unpacking, while I was putting things away. I just could not stop listening to it. I was so engaged and involved in what was happening, and I was loving the characters so much, and it was just such a surprise because I was not expecting to love it as much as I did, or be invested as much as I did, or to love the characters as much as I did, or to have such a fun time reading it. I was not expecting none of that. I was expecting to enjoy it, of course, otherwise I wouldn't have read it, I wouldn't have picked it, but not in the way that I did. It was just so good, and now I want to read everything that Cat Sebastian has ever written because she can do no wrong. I mean, we'll get back to that at another moment in time. And the other surprise was Ellen Outside the Lines by AJ Sass, and that is because I really just loved it, and it kind of started, or better yet, it reignited a love for middle grade books that are, of course, well written and most of the times queer and mysteries and all of that. But I swear it's going to be one of my favorite books of the year, and it's a middle grade, and I was honestly not expecting that because lately I've been reading, I feel like, less YA novels, so I was not expecting to like go back to loving middle grade books as much. But it started a trend with me because now I've been reading and listening to more middle grade books, and I'm truly loving them. I'm handpicking them very carefully, of course, as I do with all the books that I read, but I don't know, I felt like it was starting a thing, and now I truly love reading middle grade books. So who knows, but it was such a surprise and I loved it so much. It has great neurodivergency and queer rep, and I definitely recommend it. Favorite new author, debut or new to you? I think I just have to go with Cat Sebastian because she was such a revelation. And in the same year, actually in the span of a couple of weeks, I listened to 2 of her books because I listened to The Queer Principles of Kit Webb, and then the following week I listened to The Perfect Crimes of Marian Hayes. So I read 2 books by her and I loved both of them. She really is a new favorite author of mine because I want to read her backlist. So I guess that's kind of a definition of a new favorite author to you. You read a book, you loved it, and now you want to go back and read her other stuff. So, newest fictional crush. I'm not gonna play the superior, snobbish person who is above falling in love with fictional characters, who's like, I'm too old for this shit. I am not, let me tell you, too old to fall in love with fictional characters. I am not above that at all. I will fall in love with women and men in books. That's how crazy it is. Who would have ever thought? Definitely not me. And my newest fictional crush is going to be, I mean, obviously I want to add Sabran from The Priory of the Orange Tree because she is beautiful, she's smart, she is a kick-ass assassin, and she has powers, and she's independent, and she has a sense of honor and duty and morals that are just, I just love her. And she's gay. That makes it just a little bit more realistic if having a crush for a fictional character could make any sense and be at any rate even slightly realistic. Newest favorite character. This was a hard one to choose because I feel like I really liked many characters that I read about, but I think I'm just gonna go with Drew Leclerc from this book right here. I listened to the audiobook of this one. This is a middle grade contemporary mystery, and Drew Leclerc, she is such a smart and funny character. She is so snarky and she's passionate about the things that she likes and her interests and stuff. She makes mistakes throughout the book, mistakes that I think I would have made at that age. I probably did. And she has a family situation that is not quite the same as mine, but it's similar in some aspects, if that makes sense. So I could kind of relate to her a little bit. The next 2 prompts I'm going to put together because the same book applies to both of them. A book that made you cry and a book that made you happy. And that wonderful book that snatched both prompts is The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. This, I listened to the audiobook and it was narrated by the author, and I kind of didn't know that. It hadn't caught my eye. I hadn't paid attention to who the narrator was. I didn't see that it was the same person, but whatever. This was such a fun read, but it had its serious moments that made me tear up just a little bit because we have an uncle whose brother loses his wife to cancer, and they had 2 kids, and for reasons that I won't go in right now, the kids have to stay with the uncle for 6 weeks, something like that, and he has to care for them. It's about his grief and other people that he lost in the past, but at the same time he's this hilarious gay uncle. He's an actor, he's over the top in everything that he does. He has such a huge personality that just hits you right in the face, and the author just narrated it in the best possible way. He really made me cry, he made me laugh, it was just the best thing ever. I feel like it's so underrated and I don't understand why, because it was brilliant and you guys need to go and listen to this book. Favorite book to movie adaptation you've watched so far this year? I haven't watched many. I cannot answer with Heartstopper because I know, don't throw stones at me, okay? Please, I apologize, I'm ashamed, but I haven't watched the Heartstopper TV show yet. I know, it's bad. I know, it's unforgivable. I mean, I was moving houses, so there's that teeny tiny excuse, but still, it's unforgivable. But I am going to stretch it a little bit with this question just so that I can answer to it, and I'm gonna go with Tear Along the Dotted Line. This is an Italian animated TV show that was drawn by the same person, the same artist who wrote the graphic novels. Now, this TV show is not the perfect exact adaptation of one of his graphic novels. His name is Zero Calcare, by the way, and you might know him because he's very famous even abroad, not just in Italy, but in Italy he's like the graphic novel illustrator. He's like the artist. He's the biggest that we have, the most famous that we have for sure. It's half an original story, half a mashup of things that he's done throughout the years, because he's been active for a long time, perhaps 10 years at least, I think. And this TV show, oh my god, it was so good. Like, if you want to know what growing up in Italy in the 90s was like, you just watch this thing and you'll know. Like, it was so relatable in so many different ways. And you know when you see something and you know what they're talking about, and that kind of recognition makes you cry in a way. I don't know, I'm getting sentimental and emotional just thinking about it, but it's on Netflix. You can watch this show. I don't know how it was dubbed. The artist, Zero Calcare, he's the one who gives the voice to the main character, because the main character is like an alter ego, like a version of himself. He has a very strong specific accent and dialect that he uses, and it's an Italian dialect that I just adore. It's one of my favorite ones. We have many, but this is one of my favorite ones. And he speaks so fast. I honestly don't know how the subtitles and the dubbing went, so I cannot speak for that. But if you have the chance, please, please, please watch it, because I can assure you it's one of the best things that you're going to watch this year, if not ever.
Ma che cazzo te frega? Metti tutte cose finte che ti fanno sembrare un grafico vero. Magari qualcuno ci casca.
Ho capito, ma se questi chiamano per vedere se è vero?
Ma te devi giocare sulle zone d'ombra, sulle cose che non si possono verificare. Tipo che facevi l'art director in un'agenzia che però stava sul mare di Giacarta e lo tsunami l'ha spazzata via. Il punto debole del capitalismo è che è boccalone. Perde troppo tempo se ci deve controllare tutti. È vulnerabile ai cazzari.
Favorite video you've done so far in the year? I think the favorite video that I've done so far this year is the one where I talked about all the lesbian books that I've read so far. I did it for Lesbian Visibility Week, and I will leave it linked, of course, in the description down below and up in the cards. If you haven't watched it, I would absolutely love if you went and watched it, and also gave me more lesbian book recommendations in the comments of that video. But I loved filming it. I loved going back and see all the lesbian books that I've read so far. I just was happy with the result, so there's that, I guess. Most beautiful book that you've received or bought so far? You know what's coming. I mean, obviously. This is the Italian edition, and it is absolutely stunning. Like, this is the naked hardcover. It's absolutely stunning. And then, if it wasn't enough, you have this going on in the inside. If you can tell, I really loved everything about this book. And again, here I'm going to add another prompt, because again, my video, I do whatever the hell I want. The most beautiful book cover of a book that you've read so far this year. Does that prompt make sense? Yes, it has to be a book that I read. Among those books, the one with the most beautiful cover. And that is going to be White on White. I listened to the audiobook of this one, so unfortunately I cannot physically show it to you. But it was a very short book. I think the audiobook was like 4 hours and a half long. It's about this woman who goes to another city for a PhD research, and when she gets there, she finds herself living with the owner of the apartment where she's staying at, and these two women have very weird, unsettling, and reflective conversations, and it's basically that for 4 hours and a half. And it was it was nice. And the topic of this PhD research is like the naked body in medieval art or something like that. And the woman renting the apartment, she is an artist and she's trying to create these paintings using only the color white. So that really explains perfectly the book cover, and it's just stunning and it's beautiful and I really liked it. Last prompt is, what books do you need to read before the end of the year? I don't want to think about that. So many, so many. Just go watch the video of my most anticipated new releases for 2022. There's a list of all the books that I want to read before the year ends. Also, you can go watch my mashed potato edition of the 5 stars prediction thing. I don't know, I don't remember. I will leave it linked. Basically, I talked about 5 books that I've owned for quite some time, and I really want to read them before the year ends, and I think they're all going to be 5 stars. So I just need to go and read them as soon as I can. The time has come. So I think this is it. This was the end of my mid-year freakout book tag. This video is going to be so effing long because I kept digressing and going into things that had nothing to do, or well, relatively something to do with the prompt or what I was supposed to be talking about. Anyways, I'm doing it again. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I'm not gonna tag anyone because this is not the kind of tag where you tag people, because everyone just does it before the middle of the year ends. Anyways, feel free to answer to the prompts of this tag in the comments down below, because I would love to know how you would answer to these prompts. I want to know what your favorite book of the year was, the best sequel, what you're highly anticipating, all that nice stuff. Let me know in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you very soon with all the wrap-ups that I haven't filmed yet, because we have to talk about March, April, May, and June. That's what procrastination will do to you. So anyways, I will see you very soon with all that stuff. And until then, take care, have a good one, and keep reading. Warm hugs. Bye.